Here we are at the end of 2025, and I can't tell you how much I feel as though time just went by just like that. Like it really flew by. In comparison to where I can just recall in 2024 at the end of the year, I was making this resolution of mine to where I would, I set goals for myself, and, out of that resolution, at least on YouTube, I would say I've given myself maybe a C. I'll probably be a little bit more liberal with that in regards to probably like a B, because I stay committed to one of the aspects of what I wanted to focus on this year, which was wildlife. Now, going into 2026, I would say is that my goal is still going to be the same in regards to focusing on wildlife. Like I'm sticking to it. I said I would give it a year to really kind of like dial in and to see how I can really start to, I guess, shape this perspective on just how I want to look at wildlife moving forward and stuff. And, I've learned some lessons. I've learned some lessons that I feel as though can be helpful for others. And they're still helping me, I would say. I'm not at this point to where I have arrived. I'm still aspiring to be, a version of a wildlife filmmaker in my own right, and really just trying to just really achieve that goal in a sense. Without further ado, I want to get into those lessons that I've learned throughout 2025 that really has helped me to try to improve, my filmmaking for wildlife. So I would say that the first lesson that I learned within this space is focusing on the intended subject matter. That's very key. The intended subject matter. When we go out and start filming the wildlife or the intended subject matter that we want to focus in on, I think at times what happens is, at least what happened to me this past year, is that I would get encompassed by so many different other aspects of wildlife within the scenery in itself. And what I mean by that is if I went out to go shoot a hawk, or if I went out to, that doesn't sound right, shoot a hawk. Sorry, not shoot a hawk, but you know what I mean. If I went out to film a hawk and I knew that it was at this particular spot, every so often, but then I start seeing sandhill cranes, white ibises, crows, I think gacklers, and, blue herons, great blue herons, all the different types of birds you could think of. If I start seeing these birds there, I tend to lose my focus at that point in time, and I start to film the other animals. And I think I do that from the perspective is that if I don't get anything, I want to capture something. And I think a lot of times when I do that, I end up with overwhelming myself because I've probably written down a script of everything I want to talk about my experience with the hawk, but I didn't get a hawk. So now I have to think of a new script as far as the things I want to talk about and stuff. So I think that not overwhelming myself with so much footage, but yes, have a backup plan when I'm out there. If I can't get a hawk, what are the other subject matters that I want to capture at this point in time? And I think that, moving forward in 2026, that's going to be a main focus for me as I continue to try to improve within this particular craft of wildlife filmmaking and photography as well. Now, I think that the first lesson is kind of tethered or compounded upon with the second lesson that I'm about to discuss here, which is being intentional with your wildlife assignment. And what I mean by that, as far as being intentional, I want to make sure that I have a good foundation, that I prepared for it, intentionally prepared for it, to where I understand the angles and aspects that I want to capture within that moment. So I would say that would be the second lesson. Maybe that's, I guess, 1A of everything, but we're going to categorize that, or we're going to count it as 2, lesson number 2 in this particular situation. think the third lesson is important, and I'm really holding up the mirror to myself in this case, like being content with the gear that you have and really focusing on, the wildlife experience in itself and documenting that. And it's tough. It's tough to not like geek out about tech and new gear. Like again, I said before, I still have the C50 here that I'm still running with, paired with the 100 to 500 millimeter that I'm still running with for the next few days. And yeah, I've enjoyed this camera. And what I will say is that within everything is that even with having this Canon C50 right now at my disposal, like all the new tech, the bells and whistles are fun to have, but what type of story am I going to be able to tell with this? Like, let me focus in on that instead of telling the story about really the gear itself. Like, yes, that is a part of what we do, obviously, but it's just an extension as far as like what we're trying to create at the end of the day within whatever niches that we are looking to really share with the world, essentially. So, and what I will say is that whenever I would get new gear in 2025, like I rented the R3, had the R5C, had the R6 Mark II, ended up purchasing the R6 Mark II, had the Canon C70 for a little bit as well too, and now the C50 at the end of the year. But what I will say, with, having the gear, sometimes you get a little bit overwhelmed by all the tech and all the bells and whistles to where you kind of get lost within the tech and not really lost in the story. I want to try to focus in on that more in 2026. Like, yes, it is a part of the story to a certain extent, but it's not the story as far as when you're looking at, wildlife filmmaking and whatnot. So I will say is that being content with what I have and not really focusing too much on the gear. Like, yeah, you could talk about it. I mean, that's the reality of it. Like, hey, it is a tool. We could talk about it. But for the most part, though, I would say that with my pursuit of wildlife filmmaking, focusing on that more in that story is going to be imperative to how I grow as an artist within this particular space. Last lesson I would say that I've learned this year in 2025 is to truly have fun. Like, it's very simple, just to have fun. Obviously, in this YouTube space, we're going to look at the people that inspire us. You're going to look at the editing styles. You're going to look at the gear they have. You're going to look at all the different types of things and even the locations that they're at. You're going to look at those things. And that's quite all right. That's quite all right within everything. But be content and have fun within the area that you're in and really maximize the potential that you have within that space. It's something that I'm continually learning within everything is that, taking a step back, when I see these individuals, these YouTubers and stuff, and really just taking consideration like, hey, what can I do in the space that I'm in as of right now to make it exciting, to really talk about the wildlife that may be active in my area? And I feel as though that's one of the most important lessons that I would take forward into 2026, and hopefully you will too within everything. So I hope that you all stay safe on New Year's Eve, and happy, New Year's to all of you and all of you that have been with me in my journey and seen my evolution between the different cameras and the different types of, photography, videography and all that type of jazz that you've seen me through over the last 5 years. I would say like 3, because 3 I've been really more consistent. I would say the first 2 it wasn't as consistent within everything, but yeah, I would say is that at the end of the day, just as always, continually appreciate the process and catch you guys in 2026. Have a great one. Happy New Year's, and catch you later. Deuces. Yes, sir. We are out in 2025. Thank you all again. Have a great one. Yes, sir.